Alright, let's talk about air cooling your car audio amplifiers, adding fans to the compartments where your amps are stored, etc, etc. It seems to be popular, getting more popular. But anyways, I've had them in my car for about a year and they've never left a temporary permanent, if that makes any sense, kind of scenario where it's been like half complete, changing them a bit, buying better fans, adding more fans in a beauty panel. So please excuse some of the mess. This is just an ongoing project. This is not a finished state, and it's going to be kind of like a temporary permanent state for the foreseeable future. But anyways, here we go. Alright, so under the two back panels of my 2002 Ford Explorer, we have two Rockford Fosgate Power Series amps. We got the 2500 BD-CP on bass and the T604 on highs and mids in the four doors. So there's four fans in here. You can see one up there, there, here, and here. And I have a custom beauty panel that goes over this back compartment for the T2500, which also has two 120mm fans. I believe these are either 80 or 90, I can't remember. I think they're, yeah, 90mm fans, or 80, I can't remember. You get what I'm saying. Under here we have some really messy power distribution. I'm just going to reposition the camera and we're going to talk about this a little bit. So here under the more power distribution area of the vehicle, out of frame here there's two 1-aught power runs coming from under the hood. One comes up into this block, one comes up into this fuse block. This is for the T2500, 200 amp fuse. Straight there. This one splits off into a 100 amp for the T600. An 80 amp that goes down to my Anderson connector that my power supply connects to when I have it in. And then I got this 15 amp external fuse right here. Actually, I think it's a 7.5 amp I have in there right now that runs the fans. This is really messy. This is kind of a working with what wire I had, working with what block I had. Didn't have all of the spade whatchamacallit, Stay-Cons I needed, so some of them just wrapped around. Once again, temporary, permanent. None of the colors really match. It's not designed for anyone else to dive into. It's not in a perfect state. This build is always changing. But anyways, now in addition to the fans, there's a couple ways they work. You can turn them on manually with the switch that I have mounted up front, which just turns the circuit on. It's an on-off switch with a small indicator light. And the indicator light will only come on when the switch is on. So it's on the load side of the switch, which is nice because if you follow what I'm about to say, you can tell without having to listen for the fans whether or not they're on when the switch is off. Because in parallel with the switch, there's two normally open switches that are actually from, I got them off Amazon for cheap from China. They're actually designed for a dryer. And they're supposed to switch on. These ones switch on at 45 degrees Celsius. They are wrapped to the amp right there on the heatsink, and one hiding right there on the T600. And they work beautifully. So if either amp gets above 45 degrees Celsius on the external heatsink, the fans will turn on, and the indicator light on the switch will come up because the load side of the switch has received 12 volts, which is nice. Even though you can hear them when you're playing on low volumes, even though you rarely have that happen because of, well, they don't get that hot. Anyways, I like these because they work. I've ran into thermaling issues while sitting still, playing music at a party, for example, where even with the covers open like this, and I had 215s at the time, pushed up on the seats, and both these covers off for airflow, they would still overheat. Because basically going full bore for long extended periods of time with no real heat sinking from the back, which is just carpet on top of insulation. It's not the best scenario. So, but then if I left the panels on, once I got the fans, left them on, left everything in place, they would push enough air over the amps to keep them from, I've never measured how hot they get in that scenario because it's not rare I push the system for that long, that hard, and I'm usually not in a position to start doing tests at that time. So anyways, they've never, I say thermal throttled, but they thermal out. They shut off until they cool down. And so there's those four, and I also have two 120s in a beauty panel, which I'm going to put on here for a second. Now I know wire nuts are not the most final solution for connecting wires, especially in car applications, But anyways, we got them there. The beauty panel will be mounted up. You can only see the top part of the amp where the needles are, which is what I wanted. It's a beauty panel. It's meant to hide your wiring, not show it off. And another example of like stuff that isn't great to do, in case you're noticing, I have all of my highs and mids running out under the cover so I could reach and readjust which goes to where, because I've been playing with external drivers for parties, and I don't want to have to dig in here and play with the terminals on the amp when I want to drop half the amp and use the doors at 2 ohms on the 2 channels and use the other 2 for something else, for example. Don't do that. It's not a good scenario. And the only thing that's really missing from here is these 2 blocks under here are positive and negative, and that's where the subwoofer hooks up. And the sub I'm working with, for example, is this T213 I have over here. Oh, there goes the camera. She's a beauty. Do a little shot later with her in the car. Those are the leads that wrap around through the largest hole on the right there. Anyways, I'm gonna put this beauty panel on, and we're gonna turn these fans on here. So here we are with the beauty panel on. It's 3/4 inch plywood with spray-on bed liner. We have this piece of Lexan mounted there. It's really easy to cut. It's just bolted on top like that. Actually, those are self-tapping, even though they're not meant to be wood screw with the hex head or tech screws. Anyways, we got guards and little filters, so you don't actually see the fans very much. And I thought right now, once that's on, be a good time to talk about the actual airflow here. So that side there, intake, outtake, 1 loop. Then there's another buddy loop system under here with the other 2 80s. In, out. So that when we don't have the beauty panel on, then we have the regular panel. This one on. There's no fans in the top of that. These leads get capped off as you saw before, and it just kind of goes. The idea is the air would flow around in a big circle like that. It works. When this beauty panel on is, we have intake, and we have outtake, and in, out, which goes like that, which will also get a little circulating air in there. It's not one big loop, it's not perfect, but it's decent. So let's turn these fans on here for a second. Alright, now that the fans are running, and you'll probably be able to hear them in the background, I thought it'd be nice time to take out my meter and just give you an example of what these guys are running at. Alright, so we're in DC amps, and I'm going to clamp the ground for all 6 fans, and we're going to see what we get. I don't know if you can see that, but our readout is 1.5 amps, 1.6 amps. Beautiful. Not very much load. Alrighty, here we go. I fucking hate this part. Fuck! Dicks. Come on. So this is how the boot of my car usually looks, except for working times where the beauty panel's not on. Anyways, let's go turn this setup on. Alright, so beauty panels are a wonderful thing. Fans, cooling, not for everybody. I think I'm going to call this an intermediate car audio level, because I would be a very big stretch to call this advanced. Although I'm using some, like, at least in my opinion, the highest you can really go in the market, aka like the T2 series woofer, love it. The Power Series amps, at least from Rockford Fosgate, which I'm a bit of a fanboy. But the actual Workmanship is, yeah, intermediate level is what I would call this, because I'm really not buttoning everything up perfect. It's not a show car. It's a temporary, permanent, but looks good on the outside vehicle. At least for the stereo installation goes. It sounds good, that's for sure. I love it. It's great for parties, things like that. But anyways, the cooling, which is what this video is more or less attempted to be based around. It's a 6-fan solution. They're cheap fans off Amazon. They're from China. They take a month and a half to get here. I haven't really found a better 12-volt option. Just like, that's just a 2-pin, just power on fan. I know they're out there, but they're either, a couple I found are very expensive and not common. But if anyone wants to throw me in the direction of better 12-volt fans for this type of application, oh my goodness, would I be very interested to see and possibly swap everything out. But for now, they work. I've had 1 fan fail out of 6. I replaced 1 during this because, you know, Chinesium and everything, as Ivy would say. But yeah, if you have any questions, any compliments, any constructive criticism, please feel free to put it in the comments and tell me how I should do things better. I know my wiring's not the best, but once again, intermediate, temporary, permanent. I can't explain how much of a stress that is. Don't use Marets in your own build. I'm only doing it because it's me. Wouldn't do it on any of my buddies' vehicles that I help with or anything like that, because cringe-worthy. But anyways, hope you enjoyed. Any questions? Other than that, have a good day.